Hello, everybody. Um, Welcome to Ensure Equality's panel on motherhood. People will be popping in to this room on Zoom, but we are broadcasting to the internet. So we're recording this. This will be available and it will go in our archive because I know that whatever is said is going to be valuable for a long time. My name is Eliza Cousin. I'm the Chief Advancement Officer of Ensure Equality, and I will pass it to Dr. Hillary Moreno, who is running the show today.
Awesome. Thank you. I wish that there was a doctor title in front of my name, maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm willing to assume that energy and responsibility. So thank you so much.
Yeah, granted. If Taylor Swift can have a doctorate, so can you.
Ah, amen to that. Good morning, everyone. We'll start off with some introductions. I would love to hear a little bit about each of you, what brings you here today, what you do outside of this space. And then after everyone's introduced, I'll kick us off with a question and we can go from there. So how about we hear first from Kyla?
Hi, everybody. My name is Kyla Winslow. I'm a mom of two. I live in Southern Maine, so over here on the East Coast. And so what I do for work is I work at a company called Pump Spotting. We help organizations connect them to their baby feeding parents. And gosh, we certainly need it. I just love hearing all of the stories when I'm talking to, well, I a lot of the times love the stories that I hear about how organizations are supporting their employees. And then often on the flip side, I hear about organizations that maybe aren't supporting their employees. And that's when I just want to dive right in and help them out. But very passionate about, maternal health, how parents are being supported in the workplace. And then really what we can all do to support as well. Even if we aren't necessarily in that space, just lending a ear to somebody is also, I think, one of the best things that we can do to support one another.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyla. And as you hear folks sharing about their businesses or what they do, give them a search so you can, look at their websites. I was just looking at Kyla's website earlier and was really amazed by it. It was super beautiful and loved learning about your mission. So thank you. And next we'll have Lada.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Lotta Love Hawkins. I am in the Dallas, Texas area. I'm a mom to two boys, a boy mom. So my oldest will be 22 next month, and the youngest is 13. So I have two businesses, or it kind of merged like that. It's a business plus. And so they're both in non-traditional female roles. The first one is My Own Lane Consultants, where I'm a trucking business consultant, helping people get started and finding their own path in a male-dominated field such as trucking. And the second one is a family-owned and operated insurance agency to support trucking initiatives, but really more open to any commercial type small business or solo practitioner. So great to be here, excited, and thank you for allowing me to introduce myself and my company.
Of course. Thank you for what you do. That's really awesome. And then next we'll have Heather.
Hi, I am Heather Roberts. I am the founder of an organization called Mom Bomb, and we are a combination between a for-profit and a nonprofit. So we have all natural bath and shower products for men, women, and children. And then we donate 100% of the profits to a nonprofit that helps mothers in crisis. So as a mother of six, I got very ill and realized that when the mother goes down, the whole family goes down, and there's nobody really to take care of us. We take care of everybody else, but nobody takes care of us. So our nonprofit helps mothers with food delivery, childcare, laundry service, whatever they need to stem the tide so that they can be there for their family in a time of crisis. So thank you so much for including me. This is amazing.
Beautiful. Awesome. And how about you, Eliza? I'd love to hear more about Divorcist and you and what brings you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am the mother to a very spirited 3.5-year-old who went to school for picture day dressed as Elsa.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the mood. I think she was Elsa last year as well. Raising little feminists who know the power of their own bodies. So I am the co-founder of Divorcist, and we are a gift registry for the newly single. Our mission in the long term is to allow people to really separate their financial security from their relationship status. So that everyone who is in a marriage or a long-term relationship is there for love, not money.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I'll introduce myself quickly. Hillary Moreno. I am a licensed clinical social worker and clinical manager of a private practice out here in West Loop, Chicago. I support lots of moms in the work that I do and just helping people achieve a little bit more life satisfaction and dealing with, challenging life circumstances that come up. And I'm a bonus mom. So, wanting to shout that out as well, and getting to be a mother figure for my husband's 13-year-old. And I'm super honored to be here today. I think that this is really energizing, being right after Mother's Day and getting to see, how our years are and how we've entered that space. And so I want to kick us off with a question of how is celebrating Mother's Day 2023 different than celebrating in years past? And that can be personally, professionally, both. I'm curious about experiences and what y'all are seeing.
So I can go. So this is the second year that I've been at Pump Spotting. And so I'll tell you, it's been different than the previous 2 years to that, because Pump Spotting celebrates Mother's Day as a holiday. So then the Monday after Mother's Day is something that every employee at Pump Spotting is given the day off. And I feel like every single organization should do the same exact thing, right? Because when we think about Mother's Day, a lot of the times, what are we doing, right? We're not necessarily always doing something for ourselves, but I was able to spend actual Mother's Day with my family, digging in dirt, doing all kinds of productive yard work. But then the day after that, I was able to, with my children, I did a Mother's Day brunch at my son's school. And it was so fun because after the brunch, the teacher said, you know what, if any parents want to hang around, you're more than welcome to. And I had absolutely nothing on my work calendar because I had the day off. And so I didn't even have to check that work calendar. I was like, yep, absolutely. I am going to stay longer. So I will say that's really how it differed, right? Maybe that Sunday was similar to years past, but the Monday after was wonderful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love that. I think, having Mother's Day and Father's Day actually recognized by employers. Yeah.
It's a big thing.
Would be great. This was my first Mother's Day as a single parent. And that was really interesting. It was a little uncomfortable. I had all these friends and co-workers say like, oh, I hope you're celebrated. And I'm like, by who? Like, my daughter is 3.5, and like, she wakes up at 6:30 in the morning demanding waffles. I gotta make the waffles. That doesn't change whether it's Mother's Day or not. So it was interesting. And I have a really great co-parent. We set the intention of having the world's most boring divorce. And obviously being in the divorce industry, we're being really intentional about it, trying to just maintain a friendship so that we can be really good parents together. But still, it's like, dude, like, you may be divorcing me, but flowers would still be nice. So I think there are extra layers of challenge for single parents in general. And parents going through that separation process, it really changes our relationship. But also, I gotta say, it was really nice not having expectations. I think that's going to be a theme in our conversation.
Yeah, you bring up a really important point too. Like, I was on Monday, a lot of my sessions were very tender with folks that I meet with, and something that, whether it's around certain expectations not having been met or their own grief around Mother's Day. And so like so much emotion in around the day, and also I think is very representative of the experience of mothering too.
I'd like to jump in and kind of share that
Yeah.
you both mentioned. And I remember, my first couple of newly singled Mother's Days. And yeah, those were challenging because, like you said, the expectation mostly, and when I separated from my ex-husband, my youngest was only 2. And so, it was that challenge of, do I bring it up? Do I wait for him to bring it up? Where do we kind of say this? Because, it's not an isolated thing. We go to stores and we see all the colors, and we see on TV, the celebrations. And so, and then, of course, he has an older brother. So it was just a very awkward time. So I can definitely relate and, remember that experience. But I wanted to just share about when you were mentioning, Hillary, transitions. And so my mother has dementia, and it's gotten worse. And this is really one of the first years that it was especially challenging, because this past year, time was such a relative thing. She's in a different time. And I think those that may have a similar experience kind of understand what I mean by saying that. And so we did not get an opportunity. I also live in another state from her, to go see her on Sunday, but made it very intentional that my boys and we were able to spend time together. We did call, and it just was a time just to realize that that's not the only time to be celebrated. So I wanted to just add that to the conversation. Even though, it's a day of celebration, you don't have to make it the only time that occurs. And so just wanted to add.
I think about this in the broader conversation around emotional labor and invisible labor. And this is something we write a lot about for the Divorcist blog. And I saw this TikTok that just summed it up, of this woman talking about how, Mother's Day brunch, and her mum herself and her sister had organized who was bringing what, who was bringing the salad, who was bringing the main, who was bringing the desserts. All of the people bringing dishes, organizing flowers for grandma, all those things were the women, were the mothers. And she's like, what's wrong with this picture? And why in Year of Our Lord 2023 are we just starting to realize that this isn't right? Because that on Father's Day, the dads are not sending around a spreadsheet for who's bringing what to the cookout. Right? Like, in what world? If that happens in your family, can I please come? And it's just this double standard. And there was so much of the day that I spent just kind of in solidarity with these other women online, and just feeling this kind of like slow rage. Because like, we have to do better.
And just to add a little antidote, this theme has been coming up. This theme has been coming up a lot, because from my perspective, I've been so focused on, Mother's Day and gifting and all those things. But to your points, I was talking with a number of friends of mine last week who are all single parents, and they're the mothers that are taking care of the kids all the time. And they were so depressed and so upset. And a few of them were waitresses, and they're like, we're working today and we see everybody coming in. It's the busiest day in restaurants, which then inspired me. So my family and I went around to our local restaurants and gave all the servers bath bombs. So when they were done, they could relax. And I think this is indicative of where the world is going, because there's so many of us who don't have that archetypical perfect life, but we can be there for each other. And if we can set up mechanisms where, maybe next year Mom Bomb has a Mother's Day brunch for single mothers, and you can bring your kids. So it doesn't become a stressful event.
We'll partner with you on that.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we've actually talked about having like a national like secret Santa for single moms around Christmas. Because I realized, just to backtrack to another holiday, I didn't have any gifts under the tree for me.
Mhm.
I had like overcompensated, maxed out a credit card on my kids' first post-separation Christmas, right?
Mhm.
And just gone nuts. Like the Bluey merchandise like corporation is steady. But I realized like I had a couple of things for me that I bought myself, but nothing was a surprise. Nothing was a true gift.
Mhm.
And I don't want to teach my kid that that's what giving is.
Mhm.
So I actually texted my girlfriends and said, like, just wrap a candy bar, wrap a hand lotion, whatever it is, just make it gift wrapped, make it a surprise, so that my kid sees me being surprised on Christmas.
Mhm.
And
For
like
anybody who has,
they delivered. My chosen family was so wonderful, but it's like if I don't take these steps to tell my community how to show up, it's just gonna give my kid this really warped worldview about my role in the world.
Mhm.
but I think that's the opportunity, right, Eliza? Because like you have a consumer
Yeah.
products company, I have a consumer product company. So now I'm like inspired to say, oh my gosh, when people are placing holiday orders, I can say, would you like to send a gift to a single mother who doesn't get gifts? And you know, that can be an add-on that somebody can do. And then we can start to create, because there's only so much we can do individually, but when we pool our resources, we can have a huge impact if there's a system
Mhm.
behind it. And
Mhm.
so this is so inspiring. This is what is so great about this environment that we're in right now.
I completely agree. I'm like, oh my gosh, this creativity. I've been trying to channel more creativity into my life lately, and I'm hearing these ideas and I'm feeling super inspired. And I think it's, about using that part of our identity as mothers, or, having mothers. Like mothers are all a part of our lives in some way, and at different capacities. How are we using our own experiences as mothers to inform how we're interacting with our communities or with our jobs, or just how are we interacting? And this is a question for each of you. How do we interact with the world, and how does our role as mothers impact that?
I like what you were saying earlier, Heather, about just recognizing that, restaurants with the demands, it is hard no matter what your position is. Restaurant owners and managers are probably hands-on during that particular day too. And it becomes such a balancing act when you're working and you're a mother, and like you were saying, where does that intersect and where does that collide? Sometimes you have to almost not be a mother to be attentive, unfortunately, in your line of work. And it shouldn't have to be like that. I think Kyla mentions again, just, her environment is just very supportive of that, and, is looking to, trailblaze the way to have that be a norm instead of an exception. And so, how to intersect with that's especially in my industry really challenging, because a lot of female drivers are away from home during this time. And so many of them have to make that choice of, do I sacrifice money, which sacrifices opportunities to have a good time and such like that, to be able to be there physically for my children. And yet it's another taking, if you would, of the pot. It's kind of bad enough to get your own gift and have to financially do that, but then when you're sacrificing one for the other, I really wish there was other ways. And I would love to hear from the other ladies of how can we bring this to not a situation where you're just doing worse, because you want to make sure you have that space to be respected. So
So in a way, just using your role as a mother to be able to see the gaps, and yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And just like I was saying earlier, and I know, with my family personally, I have two younger sisters, and I think I get it a little more from my dad, to where I'm not sitting there, I'm not very conscious of the date. I'm also one of these Christmas people that if I could save money the very next day, let's do that. We're gonna have a good time, but I don't want that one time to kind of force anybody's hand, and travel arrangements and stuff, although it's great to be there during that day. If my plan even is to kind of catch up, probably around Memorial Day, and that'll just still be our opportunity. So yeah, just kind of, how do we not make it a bigger burden for mothers financially, in order to still make that time and space for their families?
I'm really resonating with what you're sharing too, because my family doesn't live locally. And so my husband and I are traveling a lot to be with family. And so I'm like, any day is Christmas when I'm with my mom or when I'm with my family. Like, thank you for how beautifully you framed that flexibility and how we're viewing these times. I'd love to hear from others too about how your role informs how you interact with the world.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
I think
I
it's,
think
oh, go ahead, Liza.
I just think another point Lana broke out that I don't want to get lost is so much of how we think about work-life balance is modeled around a 9 to 5 corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about the experience of waitresses, kitchen staff. I mean, let's talk about trucking and logistical workers. Let's talk about warehouse workers, retail workers, agriculture workers. Like, unless we're looking at the full spectrum of the American economy and how it intersects with everything else about us, we're not serving mothers, we're just serving a very small slice of that.
Yeah. And when I think about how I interact with the community, right? And like what I want my kids to know too is like being courageous. And what I mean by that is courageous to ask for help when you need it, right? A lot of the times I think back to before GPS was a thing, right? We're just driving around looking for a specific spot. But if we can just stop and ask somebody the directions to wherever it is we need to go, my gosh, it's going to save our sanity, right? And so I think a big part of it is knowing that we can't handle everything ourselves, whether it's maybe we do just need to like get away for a day or an evening, and just asking somebody, hey, can you hang out with my kids, or can you, whatever it is that you need. It's taking the time to make sure that you have what you need, so then you can provide for your family, provide for your friends, provide for whomever it is that you need to. But if you have like no more gas in your tank, then you're just not going to be able to do that. So that's one thing, right? And so that's one thing that I would love my kids to know is when you need that help, ask for that help. And it also goes back to the workplace. If you need something from your employer, maybe it has to do with breastfeeding or pumping, right? What in my world anyway, but whatever it is you need, you make sure you let them know and be your own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's okay in this day and age too to get creative with your employers, because if you're a good employee, they will make accommodations for you. So if you say to them, listen, I can get done 8 hours of work in 4 hours, grade me on my production and not my hours, and let's see what happens, give me a try. There's not a lot that will say no, and depending on how big the company is. But we have to think about breaking down these systems that have been put to kind of put us in this position in the first place, and push back against them, because we have value in the market.
Yeah.
And so when you have value, now you have leverage. And so if we all start to say, to Kayla's point, this is what we need, what are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And systems that were designed for men with stay-at-home wives doing the parenting, but also the management of a household, right?
You have to think
there's-
about, there was a time in America where women didn't work, but it was presented I hate to say this, you can disagree with me or not, but under the guise of feminism, that women get back into the workplace, which then took them out of the homes, put their kids into public schools. And now that disconnection happened. And that was to increase a revenue tax base. It wasn't for feminism. So we really have to think about the old way that we've been indoctrinated to think, and now think about what's best for us and know that we have the power together because there are so many of us. So that's where the power is coming together and pushing that change from the outside in.
So, Heather, you just made me think of empowerment over exploitation. Like we have a group of women here who are innovators and have used their identities and experiences to inform the work that you do, the things that you have developed, and even just like the creative ways we do day-to-day life as moms, and that is so beautiful. And so I feel so impacted by that idea. How can we empower when this was kind of initially built on an exploitative way?
Yes.
I am so grateful that you brought that point up.
Yeah, because we do have so much value. I mean, that old adage, if you need something done, give it to the busiest person you know, which is always a woman, by the way. So how we get rewarded in the workplace is you do a great job and then you get more work. And then the person who's not as efficient as you doesn't have as much work to do. It's so inverted. And we need to start calling these things out. And it's okay to stand up for yourself. When I first went into the workforce, I didn't know I could do these things. Now I work for myself, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for somebody that brought value to my company. There's always a way to work it out.
There's so much about training the people who work for us and what they can expect. I take that so seriously as a manager. I know I had an assistant who would text me she had to commute from out of town, and I'm in Wisconsin, so sometimes the roads don't road, right? You cannot get to work, and sometimes in January. And so she was texting me from the side of the road in a blizzard with a flat tire. And I'm like, my only question is, are you okay?
Yeah.
And she's so apologetic and she's panicking. She's thinking she's going to get in trouble. That was the furthest thing from my mind. But these systems are set up to be so fear-based. And bringing up TikTok again, because that's what I do to melt my brain. And there's this meme going around about how millennials are the parents in the office, because our generation has gone to therapy. We've done the work and we've identified what needs to change, and we're working back against that toxicity. And now we're with Gen Z and we're like, oh no, baby, come take care of yourself. If you can, have a work day you feel good about, if that is 6 hours, 7 hours, and I'm blown away by what you're doing, great. Go have lunch. Go pick your kid up. We really need to model the management that we needed in our 20s and in our early motherhood. I think that's
and I think this permeates through all of everything that we do. So think about this. Imagine if when you hired an employee, you only incented them on deliverables, because that's really all that matters for your business anyway. What gets done? So this is your job. You get these things done, you get paid. There's no time involved in that. That's productivity based. Even with consultants, consultants used to just come in and charge you, $10,000 a month. And what are the deliverables? You say, I want my business to increase by this, and you get really specific. And then either these people do the job or they don't do the job. It becomes very objective instead of subjective.
So it makes me wonder a little bit about what is being ignored about mothers or not talked about, or where are the gaps, more areas of, where employers, or I know that this is a big question, but even within society, maybe, what are we missing that we're seeing mothers needing right now?
Off the top, I think recognition. I think it's the beginning acknowledgement, even when you have a problem, you have to acknowledge there is a problem before you find a solution. And so acknowledgement of the worth on a financial, on all those different scales, on in life insurance, I think people always lean towards ensuring the bread winner and such, but how would you replace someone who took care of the household? What is their financial worth? Because if you had to, I know that there's this, like you were saying, a meme, but a chart I had seen several years ago when it was just talking about the role of a teacher. And they're like, so if teachers had to validate their salary, even working minimum wage, to be the daycare that some people believe that teachers are, to have the curriculum development that, cost all this money, to have, the lesson planning. And by the time that they kind of line itemed each, role that a teacher typically plays in the classroom and outside of it, it was like $100,000+ salary. But most teachers don't make anywhere near that. And I would dare say that's the same value proposition to ask of mothers, because, motherhood is a choice, first and foremost. Secondly, it's like, okay, so, many of us had to kind of push that in our household budgeting of what is our value. And I think many of us have undervalued ourselves in how that translates to your work environment. So recognition, acknowledgement of the financial contributions of the household, both that you can measure and those that are more qualitative. So,
and looking at that from a divorce lens, I'm in the middle of divorce negotiations with my very lovely co-parent, but there is a big part of me that's like, yeah, I want recognition. Like when pandemic hit, my daughter was 3 months old, and I was the one that was working with her, in the bouncer next to my desk, or physically like tied to my body. My husband went to work every day, and it's like, I want back pay. Like, damn it. And like there are all these ways, like we need that to be acknowledged. And the way capitalism works in America, no. And I'm an immigrant, I'm from Australia, my sister lives in the UK, and she has a very different relationship to motherhood, because for 5 years she was paid by the Scottish government to raise her kids. Right? What a concept. My other child has joined the chat. Say hi. Right? Like I tell Americans this, and they're blown away, because imagine, right? And they said, like, you have income support. You don't need to look for a job until your youngest kid goes to school. Your bills are paid.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
What I see a lot of is, what I hear a lot of, and right, what I've experienced too, is proactive support. So it's not just support that people need in the workplace, it's proactive support. And so in my line of work specifically, think about a parent that's returning from work, right? And they need to pump, right? They need to keep their tiny human alive by providing from their body food for their baby. And so when I think about like all of the stories that I've heard, there's certainly a few that stand out to me, but one of which is like somebody comes back from maternity leave and there's like no mention of like, what types of accommodations do you need? Like, what can I do to support you? Like, and it doesn't have to be, well, are you pumping? Because the employer absolutely does not need to know that, but it's asking that question, how can I support you as you're returning from work? Instead of on the flip side of an employee maybe needing to find a lactation room, or maybe just doing it in the bathroom because they don't want to ask. Maybe they're scared to ask, or maybe it's uncomfortable for them to ask. But how different would it be if an employee returns to work and their employer says to them, hey, Kyla, welcome back from work. I'm not sure if you need it or not, but I just wanted you to know, like, there is a lactation space over there. Like, we've got snacks in there. We've got a fridge. We've got every single thing that you're going to need as you're on the, your parenting journey and returning from work. And so I think it's a culture change too, in some instances, right? Sometimes I hear from people and they're like, my employer was amazing. Like, these are all the things that they did for me. And then the other employees are just like, I didn't want to ask a question. Like, I didn't want to bother them. It was really uncomfortable. It was a male manager who's like in his 60s. and I didn't want to ask the question. And really what baffles me is, and I understand where they're coming from, but one in 3 people will not ask for their accommodations that they need as they're on their pumping journey from their employer. And so to answer your question, Hillary, proactive support, like I think that is absolutely what is needed.
I like that specification, because then it's like, it's creating space, and helping people feel like their needs are being tended to, even if they haven't maybe personally asked for it themselves. That's an important distinction. So thank you.
Yeah.
Other folks.
Also in recognition, to kind of piggyback on what Kyla was saying, that is biological, would you treat someone who's coming back from heart surgery in that manner? Would you treat someone who's coming back with a broken leg? Would you be like, okay, so you're standing for the next, and I understand that these were your job requirements previous, but you see that really in just all these other biological medical conditions where the accommodations are flooded towards them with options, but coming back from having that experience of motherhood is very much a biological. I know I personally, my first one, I rushed back because I was in fear of losing my job. And so although I had the time, technically, I was like, I couldn't be away that long, what all was going to happen? Where would I be kind of in that hierarchy, when I came back? Because there was no exit plan to help me kind of transition. I mean, time, actually, I had a C-section. It was happening, I didn't even really, I thought I had an extra week. All that was going on, but coming back was really so horrific that I didn't stay at the company longer than a month when I came back, because it was just so traumatic. And then I had to think of, how do I transition my career at this point with a young child? And I opted to take night work. And I am not even a night person. I'm a morning person. I get tired around 5, And so I was just like, how can I make this work for what I have to do now? Because I didn't have the support. So just that recognition of, would you treat this the same way as you treated anything else? Because I think sometimes you do have to paint a very clear picture to someone who hasn't experienced that yet or ever. In the case of men, they're not going to experience what that is. Maybe they had a sports injury, so let's relate that, and so just make it clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they can't empathize or just trust our experience, we have to go those extra steps to make them understand. But I mean, by American standards, I was lucky when I had my daughter. I had 14 weeks off paid. But I used up my annual leave, I used up my sick pay, and I battled internally because I was like, just because I've had a baby doesn't mean that I won't get the flu. Doesn't mean that I'm not working hard and still need a vacation. I spent my vacation delivering a baby in hospital. That was not very restorative. And having to like what? In what other medical condition are those stipulations applied?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just, I think it's so rooted in how society feels about women in general. And until we really break through these legacies of misogyny, I think we're not going to be able to catch a break.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear that. And I realize that maybe the ordering of this question is interesting, because has there been progress? Have we seen progress anywhere, or what has that looked like on a small or large personal, professional scale? I'm curious what you guys have seen, what you ladies have seen.
I think with certain organizations or companies, absolutely. And I think that certainly depends on the leadership and what type of culture they want to have at the organization. But then with other companies, right, a lot of the times I'll ask, like, are you looking to demonstrate support for women and families? And like, I've had companies saying, no, like, that's not really one of our priorities. And we're like, okay, well,
Thank you for your honesty.
good
Bye.
luck. Yeah. Good luck with your future. So I think in certain pockets, there certainly are. And it's interesting because it surprised me that in sometimes male dominated industries, those are the ones that want to support their women the most too, which I think is phenomenal. So I think, yes, in certain aspects, what I'm seeing is people moving forward. In other aspects, nope. And they don't even care to.
Interesting. Thank you.
I think that we have to be kind of very careful about who we emulate as examples for work. Sheryl Sandberg, that book didn't help me, okay? Because I don't have the same resources that Sheryl Sandberg has. So before she goes on 60 Minutes and I watch that, I'd rather talk to Lotta about what's going on, or Eliza about what's going on in her real life, than this fugazi, story they want to give us. So, we have to be really intentional about who we lift up as well, because we could find a spokesperson that embodies these feelings and they could potentially have the same impact. But we also have to push back with the people who are not representative of us.
I like that statement because when I first made it a point to work from home in 2016 in the education field, everyone's like, so that means you're unemployed or you're a tutor. And I'm like, no, it's a thing. I've seen it. There's virtual schools. There's ways you can, be a certified teacher and work in this environment. And the question everyone kept asking me almost to deter me was, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? And I'm like, okay, first you tell me it doesn't exist. Then you're like questioning my motives. So how about helping me? How about, some resources and such? But if you want to know, it's because I'm a single parent. And as a teacher, I was working the same hours that I was required to watch other people's children, and I couldn't go get mine. And it was that little time period of 3:30 to 4:35 o'clock that was just such a challenge, because it's like, who do I trust to pick up my child? Then what happens during that time right there, because it's still very crucial time. And then how do I financially afford it? Because, when I was really on a very shoestring budget, only getting paid once a month, having to foot the bill for everything, it was just like, and so where do I get $150 extra for an hour and a half of time each day? I mean, can I just grab him and then bring him here? And so just trying to put all that stuff in context of how, just trying to make it not really just be like it's my problem, but if we can kind of develop some systems that, like you were saying, bring attention to these gaps. It's not just one child. It's not, there's industries that kind of focus on that, but no, it's a challenge, but I still feel very encouraged with where it's going with the progress. Just being able to work from home now, it's a real thing. People see it, in action. It gives so much flexibility. I would just say to employers, don't be scared to sell that as a benefit, to be able, like Heather was saying earlier, have it be deliverable focused, and people will really put in and be attentive and even be proactive in seeing what the needs of the organization are, because it supports their needs in the same bucket. So being able to work from home, having flexibility to be physically where you need to be, because even with a younger child, just having them there, it's such a peace of mind that you can focus now on your work. And so I see there's some lights, but we still need to make sure we're directing it into great spaces. So
yeah,
I think the pandemic was just such a shake of the snowball. Remember like BBC Dad, and then how we all became BBC Dad.
Yes.
And at the time, like my boss, like the head of my organization, was a gay man who I don't think had met a toddler. A lot of gay men obviously are parents. This guy, no, not in his culture, not in his frame of reference. And he had these real blinders on. And he was like, no remote work. Everyone come into the office. DC, no, we're not giving cost of living adjustments. Suck it up. Like, no, you can't have your kids at home while you're on the clock. All these very patriarchal policies. And all of a sudden, nope, his plans for forcing us to become this very suddenly conservative structured organization had to go out the window, and all of us just had school going on in the background in our living rooms. That was I don't believe in silver linings on pandemics, but that was such an unexpected benefit to that flux that society had to go through. And, that was great timing for me because I was on Zoom in meetings doing my job, breastfeeding. Sometimes you got to get a boob out on Zoom. What you gonna do about it? Gay men I work for. It was very fun to see them like go, oh, they're like poker face. I'm like, yep. Say anything.
The toddler wasn't the only thing he's never seen before.
You gotta learn sometime, right? Yeah. So I think now on the other side, we can kind of pick and choose, and employers just had to learn to deal with it.
Yeah, it was a major shift, and it, in light of big changes, it also makes me wonder about if you're willing to share a little bit about those moments you each saw a gap, and there was something that you're like, I want to be a part of filling that in, or I want to create this thing. I'm wondering what that moment was for each of you that was like, this is what I'm going to do.
Well, for me, the inspiration for Divorcist actually came from baby registries. And it was me and my co-founder, going through this process and seeing like, okay, these are very nice, but is this really the time when you need this infrastructure around you? Is it for your wedding? Is it for your baby? Or is it when your life falls to shit? And there was no equivalent service and brand for really meeting people at that true moment of crisis where you need your community to rally around you and contribute to a cash fund and buy you gifts and get new sheets for your bed in your new apartment. And so what we wanted to do with Divorcist was just to make that process dignified. And in America, we do that through capitalism, right? So we built a gift registry just to tell people this is a big moment in your life and it is worthy of recognition. And if you're building a circle of support around you, we can help you do that by building tech, by putting it on your phone and making it socially acceptable to ask for help.
I would just say that the genesis of this for me was exactly what we're talking about today, is that we mothers are responsible for everything. And sometimes when we do have partners, they feel more like children than partners. And so we're spinning all the plates all the time. And we want to help each other, but we can barely take care of ourselves. So if I could create an ecosystem where we could take care of each other just by doing normal everyday things like buying yourself a bath product and you help somebody else, boy, wouldn't that be a way to build a capitalistic endeavor that also has a real social component with it. And if I take myself out of it, because it's not about making money, it's about doing the right thing, what do you know? The money will show up eventually, number one. And number two, I take huge umbrage with companies that say we give 50 cents to Tibetan monks' children that are homeless, because no, you don't, number one. And number two, I don't know
have children.
I don't know. I'm just making it up. It's like, there's a sock company that says they give a pair to homeless people, but they sell these beautiful $60 socks, but the socks they give to the homeless people are disgusting. So what are you really doing? What are you like? You're gross. I don't like that. So the only way to take that ick out for me was to give it all away and trust the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that the right things will happen. Because I believe that if you put the right systems in place with the right desired outcome, it will all happen. And we're starting to see that. So if more people could start to think about, wow, how could I do capitalistic things that actually aren't just about capitalism? We could have an industry where every vertical is set up like Mom Bomb. So you're just shopping and you're supporting people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And I think there's something to be said about meaningful work at the end of the day and who it is you're helping and the impact that you're making too, right? I know towards the beginning of this call, during the introductions, I had said, I think it's great when we're just there to listen to people, because that's a lot of the times what people want, right? They need somebody to listen. They want somebody to help maybe instill confidence in them. And I think when I think about what are the most gratifying things that we can do in life, sometimes it's just that. It's to provide support to those who maybe didn't ask for support, but how wonderful would it be if somebody was just like, I'm going to help you, and this is how I'm going to help you, and these are the ways we're going to do it. I think I think that's just wonderful things that we're all doing, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
That's the non-transactional nature of the world that really is missing, because everything's a transaction. Everybody you talk to wants a transaction from you at some point. So when you just show up and do something out of the goodness of your own heart, that's where the magic really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. My company supports, just my own lane consultants is not where you have to fit into other boxes, and the trucking industry is such a diverse industry. You can have mental health professionals, you can have wellness professionals, as well as, the typical things that you have. So just encouraging everyone to find their own space and go from there. Like you were saying, really the key in all of it is people just need that sounding board. And oftentimes we're told, like I shared in my experience earlier, we're told how it doesn't work, but you haven't told me how it can work. And how are you so sure that it doesn't work when you haven't done it? And so, just all the opposition is out there. So whenever you can encourage someone to just do their research, and how to dig deeper, that's the jewel of it, helping someone learn how to fish and not just giving fish. Because then that is something that could be transferable for future generations. And that's really what motherhood, is about, setting the next generation that you brought up for success. So so that's my contribution, just being able to encourage people in a very niched way, because that is how you find your success. You can't be too broad in everything,
Mm-hmm.
but this niche is very transferable. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think motherhood has really changed my relationship to work. I mean, it's given me perspective. I think in some ways it's made me less ambitious, because yes, I'm a CEO, I'm a communications consultant, but all I really care is having a quality of life to support my kid.
mm-hmm.
And I've always told people, if I could earn $70,000 for being a barista, I would go do that in a heartbeat. It's just a shift. I think it has made me really appreciate, it's made me look at my own classism and really look at that and be like, I don't care what you do. You're all just trying to feed your kids. It is all equally valid. Everyone is entitled to the same level of support, whether you're blue collar, white collar, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're all entitled to that same level of respect and accommodation and dignity at work.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I see you nodding. You're like,
Yes.
I love this because it's so true.
Absolutely. And so it makes me we have familiar and consistent themes coming up throughout this, a lot of different individuals have similar feelings about this experience of mothering and working and just being a mother in life in general. I'm wondering what each of you feels that we need in order to build more community in this.
Forums like this, just having that conversation, you may think that conversation has been had, but it's a new day, new opportunities. You're hearing it, and that's what I love, just about repetition, because you could have heard a song before and you thought you knew it, and you sit down in a different headspace and you're hearing new words that you're like, did that really, was that always in the same song? You just mature. And so having spaces like this, continuing the conversation, and just experiencing life and enjoying it along the way, I think that's definitely what would help.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And also bringing people from different backgrounds, different places in their lives, right? Just a difference of perspective, I think, is always wonderful too, because like, I know how kind of I live my life, right? For the most part, I know, but just hearing other people's stories and thinking, wow, okay, so I need to think of other perspectives as well, or where other people are in their life. It certainly helps.
Mm-hmm.
I would love more opportunities for like intergenerational conversations. Because Lada, I think we're around the same age, but like your kids are grown. I have so much to learn from you. And I heard a member of Congress, Katie Porter, who's one of the only single parents in Congress. And she talked about how the biggest pushback she had was actually from older women in government. Be like, well, I suffered. It's your turn to suffer. Suck it up. Like, right? So we got to break that cycle, and we got to find the older women who will champion us, who will listen, and who will say, I suffered, you shouldn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
If you're one of those women and you're hearing this, email me. I will take you to lunch.
That was really good. That was really good, because I see that a lot too. And I'm noticing, as I'm approaching 50, that's really even first and foremost, even though I'm in a family of mostly, I'm the oldest of 3 girls. I didn't really bond well with women when I was younger. I don't know why, it just didn't happen like that, and that's why when I had my 2 sons, I was like, yes, just like, I'm a boy mom, yes. And even my mom, she's the oldest daughter of 3 younger, sons. And so she was kind of like mom number 2 for her siblings. And so just that perspective, and sometimes I really see that it's not even hard. They really think they're trying to toughen you up and prepare you for, what's to come. And like I was saying earlier, just, oh, that doesn't work, sweetie. It's like, well, it didn't work for you, and I can respect that, but I just need a little encouragement. That's all you have to do. Just thumbs up, smile at me. If I keep hitting my head, that's okay. Not that you have to watch. I know it's painful to watch, and I think that's what that comes from. Mm-hmm. It's painful to watch someone try, how hard they're trying, yet it's not turning out the way they thought it would. If you guys if you're into movies, watch Dungeons and Dragons, the new one that just came out. It's not the greatest, but it has a really has a similar theme of just, sometimes life doesn't pan out the way we think, but that's just still, now we get to kind of have that new experience and move on from it, and learn and encourage and understand that the next person is going to have a brand new experience. And so now I love that you said that.
And Heather, I saw you jump up during something that Eliza shared. I'm curious what you're thinking.
Well, like everything resonates with me, because I mean, from every angle, this is the sentiment of, I would say 90% of the working mothers out there. And so, I just hear these things, and it helps me percolate, like, when I'm out there talking to Fortune 500 companies about, sponsoring Mom Bomb and being a corporate sponsor, maybe something that we put in there is like, here are actionable items that you can do for the working mothers within your organization. And maybe as a group, that's something we start to put together so that we have something that we can do to actually make a difference. Because it's one thing to talk about it, but I feel like, the action is really what is going to make the difference. So is there something that we as a collective group, because we all are so aligned in our thoughts and we're really representative of what's going on out there, could we put together, what are some things that employers should be concerned about when it comes to having mothers, things they would never think about? And we could just circulate that as a group. I mean, that helps the community. It helps everybody. And who knows what could come of it. So just something to think about as maybe a follow-up for us.
Mm-hmm. I like
Great
that.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm down.
Me too.
Me as well. I mean, I like that idea because it can some of these ideas, it's like this is something that we get to do in our day-to-day lives as mother and being mothers, and it's connects so many people, and it also feels so vast. And with these systems that are so big and so embedded, it can feel so daunting. And so to just think about the impact of having this space, these connections, and how many people each of us can touch, that's huge. And so it really helps for me, it brings my feet back down to earth in talking about these big ideas. So I absolutely love that. And I then wonder for each of you, who were your communities or the resources that guided you through the tough times of mothering, or even through the really amazing times of mothering.
I just want to shout out my co-founder, Elizabeth Paulson. She's an introvert, so she shoves me out into the world. So I can be the spokesperson for divorces, and I always have to say, like, no, there's two of us. But she is a single mother. Obviously, she's my mentor, and what I love about her is that she fiercely defends her time. And she's very clear cut, she's very values driven, and she'll be like, nope, that's not on the schedule. But like, I've got 45 minutes, go. And it's just so great to see her, a CEO at the height of her power, just model that for everyone else. And yeah, 3:30, she's out the door, she gets her kid. I actually have to go because I've got my next meeting.
Sounds good.
you
Thank you
time.
so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I could talk all day. Yes.
I love your passion. Take care of yourself. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Others, your community, the resources that have grounded you or supported you.
I think my family for sure, when I first became a parent, like absolutely. And it wasn't like in the moment, but I think it's more so things that I learned from them as I was growing up, right? Like strong work ethic, like being frugal. So many things that I think I didn't realize that were ingrained in me starting at a young age until I had become older and become a parent. But as a new parent, I remember just kind of being lost, right? Because yes, I knew people who had babies, but maybe it wasn't the same exact time as me. And so I went to something called a mothering circle. And so I went there once a week. I also went to a breastfeeding group. So a lot of these people I was seeing twice a week, but it was such a great resource because we were talking about the successes, but more so the challenges of what it was like being a new parent, and just talking about, oh my gosh, like this is happening to my body. This is happening to me. Like, this is what I'm thinking. Is anybody else thinking these thoughts or experiencing these things? And it's just, there's something about knowing that other people are going through a similar road as you at a similar time that it just is community building for sure. And also it's confidence building too, knowing, okay, I'm not the crazy one here. We're all a little crazy in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I love that you used those resources and like just really emphasizing that point. I talk to, new moms that I work with quite often about that, because when you think about I think Eliza brought up the generational differences and some individuals feeling like they want to use their mom as a resource and feel some barriers in the way, or, personal history taken into consideration. Obviously, our own moms also can be great resources. It depends, but really honoring that everyone has their own experience and that there's a lot of similarities. So I commend you for using those spaces. That's beautiful.
I hate to jump in here, but I would be remiss if I didn't also say, Hillary, I know you say you're a bonus mom, but you're still a mom. And I would be remiss if we didn't turn the lens back to you a little bit here and say, what are some of your experiences? Because I'm sure there are mothers listening that did not birth their children, that are still their children. And that's a very valid way to be a parent. And I would love to hear from your voice and your story a little bit. And sorry for putting you on the spot. But as I'm hearing these beautiful stories, I know that you have a beautiful one too that's valid.
Girl, you're gonna make me cry. I think that that's, I was thinking a little bit about sort of non-traditional family units. I literally am living the real life modern family, my parents, from my parents and my family system. And so I think my own experience with my family has been really interesting in informing like how I can be there for my stepdaughter, and that like it's not easy to have be a part of a blended family. And it's not always easy to show up in that space, and that like I'm often centering myself around like Michaela, my daughter is strong, and she is who she is because of the various parents in her life, honoring her mom, honoring her mom's partner, honoring her mom's family, my husband's family too, like just that we have a really big picture to take into consideration. And I'm even wondering like, oh my gosh, how I'm like, have I been including myself in some of these questions? Maybe sometimes yes, like sometimes no. And so it is interesting. Like I notice I'm still integrating myself into being a mom. It's been 8 years, and it is always going to be a journey of remembering that I'm a part of her life and valuing myself in that way. So it's absolutely a journey, and I really honor the good days and honor the tough days too. I've learned a lot about myself in it. And I've also learned that how it can be isolating too, because it is maybe my role isn't so clear as we try to make it. Sometimes I'm like an auntie, sometimes I'm like a sister friend. And it's all about checking in with where my daughter's at, and really having to speak up, like, and have that courage that you're talking about, Kyla, around like, yeah, I am a mom no matter what. So thanks, Alyssa. And my best resources to answer my own question have definitely been, therapy has been really helpful, and reading. Like I'm a really big researcher, and either it's reading about like step parenting, or like reading about presencing myself. Like the book that really changed my life, I think it's called You Are Here by Thich Nhat Hanh, to just remember the presence that my life is asking of me. Like whenever I'm getting in my head and there's tension, it's because I'm not there in that moment. And so I've really had to just, get here and go with the flow of things. So yeah, thanks for listening. How about you, Heather? I'd love to hear about resources or community for you.
I have to be honest with you. I had a very different mothering experience. When I had my kids, I was working at I helped start this company called autotrader.com back in 2000, which was like a nothing company then. And so my whole existence was like, I have to continue building this company. And these kids are kind of an impetus in doing that. It's very annoying. But after, and it really, I have to be honest with you, it really wasn't until I got sick that I realized, so I used to justify it in my mind, like, I have to work this hard because I have to feed them. I have to, I can't be with them because my job is to take care of them. I have to do everything. And so, my father wasn't around all the time because he was out working, and that's my role in the family. And that's what I'm doing. When I got sick, I realized none of that shit matters, because it can all go away overnight. it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is actually being there for them, listening to them, making them feel supported. All the things that we didn't have, I wasn't introspective enough to realize that when I was in it. I had to be removed from it to then realize. So now I feel like it's a new world being a mother, and I love it. And my kids are older, and we do fun things together. But it was rough when they were growing up because it really felt like just another chore, and I wasn't enjoying it the way most mothers enjoy it.
Mm, mm. I want to highlight that statement and like, I think validate the fact that it isn't always enjoyable. I am a true believer in emphasizing the positive, and like it's important for us to like also be real about that. And so I'm so grateful that you said that. Like we are human, and there's just moments that it's like this, what the heck? What's going
Why
on?
did I do this? I used to say to people, like, when you would get pregnant, people would be like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. I'm like, they're liars. They're all liars. Like, why don't they just say, like, okay, just know what you're in for. And by the way, when you have another one, your workload doesn't just double, it increases exponentially by every child that you have. So, let's have some honesty around this thing. But, it's different for everybody.
Of course. And yeah, it is one of those things that depending on what environments we're in, we might get different, experiences from people. All of it is valid. All of it is true. The good, the bad, and everything in between exists within motherhood.
And it's ebbs and flows, and as everything is an evolution. This is what I'm realizing. A lot of kind of alluded to this, but life is an evolution. And so the things that were important to you 5 years ago may not be important to you right now. And you may be able to realize, you have a different purpose here than what you actually thought your purpose was. And so being flexible with yourself and forgiving yourself for all the things that you think you didn't do right is a huge part in the mothering journey, because when you feel whole and you feel okay, you can then give that to your children. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times the children are just the result of the parents' anxieties and fears. And so you have to really, it's like put your mask on before you try to help the person next to you. And taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other is crucial to being a good parent.
Right.
The society doesn't allow for that. It doesn't allow for moms to take a timeout. We're putting everybody else in timeout, but can I have a timeout? That's what we have to start supporting each other around. Like, it's okay to lose your shit,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I think you bring up a really important point too. You mentioned Lada had highlighted about evolution, that like, I personally used to think that motherhood was a ceiling. So once you became a mother, you reached like the max, like that of like, that's what you've got to do. So that's what you'll continue to do. And I've been enjoying and deeply afraid of how much like that's not true. And that like my life has just been starting, and like that I can set an example by evolving and really moving with what I'm seeing life ask of me, or how I'm noticed my purpose changing. And it's really scary at the same time, but it's so true.
That is actually, like I said before, where the magic is. When you kind of face these things and then get through them, that's where you realize what you're capable of. And then you can take that to your children and say, listen, I was scared and I did this, and look what happens. And it fortifies you, because a lot of times as parents, we want to protect our children. So I find myself a lot of times, my kids like, can you write a letter for this? Can you get me out of this? And I'm like, oh yeah. And then I realize I'm not doing them any favors by not letting them deal with some of the stresses, right? So if I go through it, I'm more fortified to be able to handle watching them struggle, which really we have to do, but it's very hard as a mother to do.
Yes.
That's so spot on. And I love that you mentioned that, Hillary, about being a mom is like saint level, right? It's like, I've arrived. It should just be all like this. I am so responsible now. And it's like, no, I'm not. I can't get nothing right. And it's just, yeah, you have to give yourself that grace. I apologize to my oldest all the time. I'm like, I'm so sorry you got that version versus the version your younger brother 10 years later gets to have, but you're part of this. You are part of this story, a part of his story. And man, I carried so much guilt behind that. I felt like I failed in so many different areas because I couldn't live to the standard that I set for my mother. But as I've gotten older, as I've gotten to know her, she had faults, she has faults, so do I. And it's like, I didn't turn out that bad. She's still here. I love it. And like you were saying, that's the part now that I am really like, wow, you know what? All this prepping, because that's really what I was like holding out for. I was holding out at my peers were all having kids, and I was laughing at them. I was like, you got stuck. And that was my mindset. And then when I had a child, it was like, oh no, like what didn't happen? And I wasn't mentally anywhere near prepared. And I like I said, that's why I'm just laughing at your comment about becoming having that level ceiling for your parent, or what a mother should be. That's what I was telling my friends. I was like almost writing those letters. I am better now, and I'm above you, and I can no longer do these things, and I must do this. And I had a whole list for myself that I failed miserably at. I stuck to none of it, and it was just like, so I just laughed at that, because that was me to a T. And that's what took so long, in preparing for my second child, because of that fear of failure, that guilt I was holding of, I messed this one up. You're going to give me another opportunity. I've messed up. But I mean, I'm so proud to say he is such a respectful, considerate, intelligent, caring young man. I'm so proud of everything that he's become. And I would just say, I got to watch it and just experience it with him. So yeah, I just want to encourage all the mothers out there that you can't break it. You can't. You're just going to reinforce the importance of how do you model better behavior? How do you deal with, when things didn't come out the way you expected? Give your children the opportunity to create their own path. And so you said that really well, Heather.
Lana, you said that very well. Kyla, sorry for interrupting. I'm going to give you a second to chat here in a second, because I want to put on the moderator hat for a minute so I can make sure to include Hillary in this too. We're going to be winding down, and I hope I see the smiles and the head nods, and there have been people coming in and out, and I have just felt so nourished from this conversation. And I'm not a mother, but I watched my mother struggle. And so hearing from all of you is healing in so many ways. And so I would love to hear from each of you. And Kyla, you can say what you were going to say too, and then follow it up with this. I'll turn it over to you first. What is the piece of advice that you wish you heard, or the words of support that you needed that you didn't hear when you needed them? And I'd love to send that out to the mothers that are listening, or the people that are going to be mothers. And you can think about it for a minute. And there's been so much said already, but I want to make sure, if you haven't said something that you want to make sure is communicated, to say it now in closing. And Kyla, I'll turn it over to you first, since you were going to talk.
Sure. So actually, it kind of all bundles together. So that's perfect. So what I was going to say is, just listening to Lada talk, what the quote I kept on hearing in my head is, you're the perfect parent until you become a parent. And it's so true, right? So as a parent, to kind of answer your question as well, is what did I think, or I can't remember exactly the question, but really what my answer is, I was always like, my kids aren't going to do this. I'm not going to do this. Like, the kids aren't going to watch this, or they're never going to eat this, or they're never going to act this way in public. Woo! Right out the window. You always cannot control how your kids are going to act, what they're going to eat. And that's something that I had to get right with. And I'm still getting right with it. Right. Perfect example. I was always a good eater. I wasn't a picky eater. Nobody in my family is a picky eater. And my daughter is the pickiest eater. And I was always like, I am not going to have a child who's a picky eater. I can't control it. Right. I need to let it go. I need to work with her on new things that we're trying and give it a try a few times. So I would say that's the thing that I wish maybe I knew before becoming a parent, is I cannot have all of these expectations as to what my kids are going to do, how they're going to act. I cannot control them, and it's okay. they're their own person. They probably shouldn't be a duplicate of me. And so it's wonderful that they are not exactly what I had expected.
I love that. Hillary, I'm going to call on you next because you haven't
Okay.
talked enough.
Okay. I feel like a couple of things come up for me on that. Like one, I've been learning how to make mistakes, and I've realized in this journey of, mothering, that I think I expected a lot. I was really hard on my mom, like I would expect a lot from her, I think. And she's really like the sweetest woman in the world and is really amazing. And also like went through a really tough time when I was born and the divorce from my father. And so I think just like honoring the fact that I'm going to make mistakes as a mom, and that's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, like in order to learn and go forward. And then something else that I learned from working with my clients is that parenting is a huge growth experience and triggering. Like I feel like we're using that word a lot these days, but like it is very triggering of our own stuff and our own areas that we can really be nurturing. Like I am nurturing like cute little Hillary and my stepdaughter, at the same time. Like I am nurturing this part of me that's like being really harsh or wanting to be harsh, like say picky eating as an example, and being like, I wasn't that, so she can't be that. And I'm like, just like, stop, Hillary. Like really, really nurturing little Hillary who felt like she couldn't be outspoken and couldn't use her voice, and then really uplifting my daughter and being like, fuck yeah, I love that this kid is using her voice and telling me what she wants and what she doesn't want. And so it's this like really huge awakening of being like, yes, being triggered, and also being like, how can I improve, grow as a person?
That's freaking beautiful. I love it all. Heather, I'm going to go to you next. And then Lada, I want to end with you because you had a beautiful moment right before we started this that acted on this question. So Heather, I'm going to go to you, and then Lada, we'll close it out with you.
I think the thing that I wish I realized or was told about parenting is that kids spend so much time being told rules and what they can and can't do. Sometimes it's more effective to not have rules and let them experiment out in the world, which can be dangerous sometimes because they can get their hands slapped a lot. But I feel like the opposite of indoctrination is what we really need to give to our kids, is that freedom to be able to say, no, you know what, I don't agree with that if it's a stranger, and say, no, you're not going to do that. Or, you know what, no, we're not going to give them the self-esteem to be able to challenge things that they don't agree with. Because the complicity, I feel like, is what's gotten us all here. Because we've been, just pandered to and have to go along to get along within the system. So if we can create little rule breakers that are ready to change it up, that's kind of what I want to do. Thank
Oh, that's awesome. And wow, that's so kind of aligned what I was going to mention. They're kids, not clones, so we don't, that manufacturing plants is closed, just, you don't have to put them out. They don't have to dress like you. They don't have to walk like you, talk like you. And that's the fun, right, in it. And to give that forgiveness, I think, Hillary, you mentioned it about even just your expectations of your mom. And you can have that list of what your mom did or didn't provide for you and such. But then it's like, why am I building a bridge that's going to keep me at arm's length from my mother? And my mom and I haven't had the best of relationships, during our time, but I see her for a person today.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to just share, is just mothers are people. And we have our faults, and there's times where we're extra proud of ourselves, and there's times where we're like, oh man, what happened? And so just, it's an experience, we're people. And this label of mother saint is destructive. You love your mother for the good and bad.
Mhm.
And so, yeah.
Ladies, this was incredible from top to bottom. And Hillary, you did such a great job moderating. I want to turn it back to you to see if there's anything that you picked up on through this conversation, because you're always so good at pulling it all together. And we can end with that, and then I'll close
Okay.
us out. But I want to make sure that you get the last word as moderator.
Oh, thanks, Alyssa. I mean, I'm just feeling the creative juices flowing. I'm feeling super inspired. I'm excited. And I feel also really pensive, I think too, like this has really brought up a lot. And so I just want to thank each of you for how you are being resources for, through and from your own experiences and mothering, and the way that you're going to continue impacting your communities. I feel very honored to know that about the work you're doing and that it exists, so I can continue sharing it with people, and that the listeners can share about it. So I think I'm walking away with an excitement for further community and opportunities, and having motherhood be more real. So thank you all.
Yes, real and tangible and touchable and authentic and all of that goodness.
And messy.
And messy, the beautiful mess that it is. So I'm going to have you go around the room and say how people can get in touch with you. This will be recorded, and I'm sure that people will view this over time, as Eliza said, or maybe it was you, Hillary. I believe this will be timeless. And I hope that this serves as a beautiful reminder of where we started, and hopefully we can look back on this moment and see the change that has occurred because of each of you and because of those that are listening. So I know that you can get a hold of Eliza through LinkedIn. You can also reach her at divorcist.com. But Kyla, how can people find you and Pump Spotting?
Yeah, absolutely. So similarly, LinkedIn, Kyla Winslow. Pump Spotting, if you know of an organization who is looking to support their women, looking to support their families more, I would love to have a conversation, because that's exactly who it is that I'm working with. We have a wonderful workplace lactation program that really supports parents as they're returning from work, but even when they're on maternity leave, as they're looking for resources as to how they're going to, feed their baby. But yes, so LinkedIn, absolutely. And I encourage everybody to check out pumpspotting.com to see exactly what it is that we do.
All right, Hillary, what about you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as well as Hillary Moreno. And then also balancedpsychotherapy.com is where you can find my bio as a therapist if you or anyone you know is looking for support.
And Heather, I know you've talked about Mom Bombs a lot, but how can they find you and support Mom Bombs?
If you just Google Mom Bomb, will come up, but also on LinkedIn, and our URL is buybombshelpmoms.com.
Love it. Lada, what about you? How can they find it, especially your consulting company? I know that people are going to want to get a hold of you for that.
Sure, thank you. On LinkedIn, and I wrote my whole name out because I don't think there's too many Lotta Loves out there. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Lotta Love Hawkins. But the name of the consulting company is myownlaneconsultants.com. We're celebrating, just creating your own name specifically in the trucking industry, but it's a wide industry. You can bring your personalities, what you have as a person, to help those in that industry get to their next steps. So myownlaneconsultants.com.
Beautiful. And Alyssa, and we just want to take a moment to thank you and thank Ensure Equality for holding this space for us to share, and for all the amazing work that you guys are doing to continue inspiring and bringing change where it's needed.
Thank you all, and thank you for being such an incredible part of this month. It's a beautiful month, and the way to celebrate is to be ourselves and be real, right? So thank you, Kyla, Hillary, Heather, Lotta, and Eliza that's far away, that's in a meeting right now. Thank you all for taking the time, for sharing your stories and your experiences. I know that so many people will find value for it. If you want to find me or learn more about Ensure Equality, you can go to ensureequality.org. We are hosting our first summit this year in Chicago on September 15th. You're all welcome to be there. We would love to see you, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy belated Mother's Day, everybody.